Thank you. Mr. Paulson?
All right, two things. About going to the government, Mr. Wood said we've been operating with the same budget for the last couple of years. He's very much incorrect. 2 years ago, we were cut $17 million in the general fund. We came to you, the public, which I was part of, with Citizens for Strong Schools. We put a ballot initiative to save our art, music, and nurses. You approved it with 65%. If it wasn't for the $13 million that we have right there, we'd be in dire straits. So he's incorrect about operating on the same amount of money. Getting off on his thing about Hawthorne, I've been involved with the school district administrators about getting a school improvement grants for Hawthorne, Duval, and Rawlings Elementary. We kept Rawlings open. And with that grant, we're not just throwing money and try to fix the problem. We're extending the school day, 45 minutes for 4 days a week. We're giving bonuses to teachers that come in there that want to come in and help us at those schools. We're paying extra for teachers for planning and for extra work. So we're not just throwing money. We have these school improvement grants are bringing in $750,000 a year for 3 schools. I've been involved with that, and it's very important that we keep being involved with things like that. I know it got away from the legislature, but you know something? If you want, we have got to make our legislature pay us more money. I'm also involved with a lawsuit with Citizens for Strong Schools with John Mills, who's a former Speaker of the House, because they don't fund education sufficiently, no matter what some of my opponents up here think. And we need to make that clear.
Thank you, Dr. Paulson. Mr. Gabb?
I don't think Jody or I are saying that the state funds education adequately. But if you read the news, you'll find out that most states in the nation are bankrupt. And Tallahassee has to do what they have to do to balance their budget. We need to solve our problems locally. We need to start by cutting the fat from the top. This is where the strict fiscal responsibility comes in. We need to look at the resources that cost nothing in our community. We've got vibrant business leaders. We've got a lot of retired people who have so much to offer. We've got the University of Florida that can provide us the research and the plan and lead the way for us to solve our problems. We can't depend on the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabb. Next, we will start with Mr. Gabb again. If elected, what would you most like to accomplish during your term in office?
Besides making sure that our budget is balanced and that we don't have to run to taxpayers and tax them even more, I would like to address the problems of failing students. We have a district that's rich in resources. Educational decisions should be research-based. They affect so many of our children, all our children. And so we need to look to the University of Florida. We need to be humble enough to approach them and say, we don't have the answers. Would you help us? The research is there. And so the 2 things that I would be mostly concerned about is fiscal responsibility and ensuring that every student in the county has the opportunity for quality education. I think equality should begin with equal opportunities to education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabb. Dr. Paulson?
Let's clear something up again about balancing the budget. That's the only governmental agency that's not allowed to balance the budget is the federal government, the Congress. We have to balance the budget, so we will balance the budget. So that's important. Now, what do I want to do that's immediately on the board, which I didn't get a chance to talk about in my introduction? The University of Florida is great, and we need to use them, except for we have a new articulation agreement with the University of Florida, and we are using them to a great extent. So I think we need to point that out, too. The other thing, though, I want to have a strategic plan. Now, we have different problems. The University of Florida is not the only answer. We need the municipalities. We need to bring in the best minds in this community. I don't have all the answers, but if we had a strategic plan, we could solve the things such as low pay. We could solve things as where we're going to place our schools. We could solve things as far as graduation rate. We can bring in these people. If we want mentors, I've been talking about mentors from the beginning. but we could get people involved. And you know something? If you get the community involved, you can do unbelievable things, and people feel like they're part of the solution. That's how we get the solution. We just don't go to one place, the University of Florida. We go to everybody, business, labor, everybody. Bring them in. Let's get our community together. No business or organization flies by the seat of their pants. Right now, if I have a criticism about our school district, we need a strategic plan, and we need to bring in the best minds in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paulson. Mr. Wood.
Just as a matter of record, my opponent is not the only one with a PhD, but please call me Jody. As far as the goals for the school system right here, my number one goal is, as you've well heard from me talking, is the appropriate balancing of the budget. Mr. Paulson is correct that it is a statutory requirement to balance the budget, but I believe it's a matter of how we do it. I want to see educational programs increased, and I want to see wasting of your tax dollars decreased. That is a key focus of what I'm running for. Next to that, we need to improve education. And a key way of measuring whether we improve education is looking at our graduation rates. Secondary to that is looking at what people do with that graduation rate that they have, what percentage goes to college. First of all, I'd like to look at the school with the worst graduation rate, and I'm going to hit on again, Hawthorne High School. They have the worst graduation rate in this county, and it's a shame. Right here, this close to the University of Florida, one of the best universities in the Southeast U.S., and we have one of the worst dropout rates in the entire Southeast U.S. at that school. Well, I want to take that 52% dropout rate as a personal goal in my 4 years in office. I want to cut that in half to 26%. There are many different routes to do it, but I want that to be my mark for the 4 years in office, that graduation rate got cut in half. Next to that, we need to work on motivating and helping our students move on to college and vocational schools following the high school. Thank you. I've got a lot more to say. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. The next question starts with Dr. Paulson and was submitted by the Alachua County Youth Council. The Alachua County Youth Council. Many East Side schools have high percentages of low socioeconomic students while also having low school grades and academic progress. West Side schools have the reverse scenario. What steps would you take to address these differences?
There are a variety of steps. First of all, I'm going to go back to these school improvement grants and tell you what we're doing in there. We are going to implement programs, and if they work, Hawthorne, by the way, is putting in a 4x4 block that gives students 8 subjects during the year instead of 6. So we can increase that graduation rate. So I'm glad that was brought up. These are the kinds of things that we're implementing at the present time with these schools. Now, do we know everything's going to work? No, we don't. We're putting in plans for how we're going to pay these teachers, which we have an appraisal committee that's working on how to appraise them. And if these things work, then we could take these and use them in other schools that are not doing as well as some of the schools they say in the West Side. Now, we do have some schools that are doing well, too. But this is one thing we're doing. We also have we need to put as many resources, and we do put resources in there, but we need to put as much resources as possible to make sure these schools become as productive and get the same results as any school on the West Side. So these are a few things that we need to do on the East Side of Gainesville. And some of these things are already in place. I don't know what's going to happen with these school improvement grants, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I was involved with Mrs. Hollinger on this ever since the get-go. We kept Rawlings Elementary from being closed. They wanted to close Rawlings Elementary. The only way they came to me, they said, would you make concessions so we could get these school improvement grants? I said, of course I will. I'll do anything I can, anything to keep those schools open because it's important to the community, and I'll do anything to make sure we have better programs there.